Okay, it's 11:30. We are going to cover a lot today in 20 minutes. Also, don't try to keep up with the recipes. When this is all done, I'll be posting the recipes to the blog. Just go to oldguykitchen.com. The recipes will be right up near the top of the list. We already have people joining us. Great. So today we are going to cover two sauces, a General Tso sauce and a teriyaki style sauce. We're going to talk about a couple of different proteins. I'm going to show you how to do tofu. I know. Don't trust me. I'm a guy, I'm a meat guy, and the way this tofu is done and fried and seasoned, it's actually on the tolerable side. I won't lie to you and tell you it's my favorite, but I'm trying to eat less meat on doctor's orders, and so I need some variety, so tofu is in the mix. We'll also do a chicken, and then I've got some great stuff over here. If you're trying to go meatless, jackfruit. Really interesting stuff. You can buy it fresh. They're these giant, like watermelon size and larger. I don't recommend that. There are a few different companies where you can buy it canned or boxed like this, where it's basically heat and eat. Any of these recipes we're going to do today, if you want to try something a little different, this stuff has the texture of, it's almost like a pulled pork or a pulled chicken. The flavor is pretty mild, and really what it does is pick up whatever flavor that you're saucing it with. So it works great in stir fries where you've got vegetables and sauces and things. So if you're looking for how to get less meat in your diet, tofu is an easy to find option. Jackfruit is getting easier to find, and they're usually in similar places. They're in the refrigerator, which is up near the produce section. We have guests in the studio today if you hear footsteps. So today we are quickly going to go through this. We're going to start with the General Tso sauce. And just for all of you on live, I bought this lovely pretend stovetop. We're going to pray that it does what it's supposed to do today when I turn it on. So anytime you're doing these sauces, when you see the aromatic things like ginger and garlic, if there are dried peppers that look like this, these are the kind of hot ones. These are optional. If you don't like spicy, just leave these out. If you like it really spicy, chop these up and let the seeds get out and let the flavor really work into everything. And if you like it kind of in the middle, leave them whole like this. But you want to start with your oil and these items first. Give them a few seconds because it releases the oils and the aromatics, and it's really nice. And then we're going to add the other ingredients. You can do this on top of whatever you're stir frying. So a lot of times when I'm just stir frying for me, I'll do my meat, then my vegetables, and then I'll do the sauce right in the pot with everything at the same time. I only have one wok, and we're doing a few different things today, so you can also do these sauces on the side and let people add as much or as little as they want. So this is starting to heat up. So to do this first sauce for General Tso, we're going to put in about a tablespoon of oil. Trust me, that was a tablespoon. We're going to add, I like it spicy, so we're going to add a bunch of peppers. And we're also going to add, I've already used my handy dandy garlic press. This works great on both garlic and fresh ginger. If you haven't seen fresh ginger, it comes as this kind of ugly looking root thing. It's like potato skin on the outside. You just take a potato peeler or a vegetable peeler, slice a little bit of that off. You can either dice it by hand with a knife, or as I do, you can put it in a garlic press, squeeze it. You're just trying to get it down to something that looks more like this. We're going to take that and we are going to add it in as well. That's a tablespoon of each. Now you can start to hear things sizzling. If you're doing this in the wok, when we get to that part, in the wok, you're always going to be on high heat, and you want to keep things moving. So I have this thing turned up to simulate if this was happening in the wok. You only need to do these aromatics for 30 seconds to a minute. And if we had smell-o-vision, and you could smell this, it smells amazing. As soon as you get that really good whiff of garlic and ginger, you want to add your liquid, which in this case is a cup of vegetable stock. If you are going to use this in a chicken recipe and you want to use chicken stock, you can. It's really up to you how you want to go about it. So we're going to add that in there. We're going to add in, see, I wrote this down to make sure I didn't forget. 1 tablespoon of tomato paste. I got too many recipes going through my head today, so I had to write them down. I'm going to put in a tablespoon of tomato paste. We're going to add on top of that 2 tablespoons of soy sauce. Just for you guys, I'm going to measure when I'm cooking at home. I usually eyeball the tablespoons when it comes to soy sauce and stuff like that. Stacey will tell you I'm not big on measuring. We're also going to add 2 tablespoons of rice vinegar. If you do a lot of stir frying and a lot of Asian cooking, this stuff's like $2 or $3 for a bottle. Pick up a bottle. If you don't do a lot or you can't find it, just use white vinegar. So we're going to put in 2 tablespoons of this. You can hear things starting to happen, so it's good. So far this stovetop is actually working. We are also going to put in 1 tablespoon of hoisin sauce. This is another one of those, it's getting a lot easier to find. If you've ever had dumplings in a restaurant, you likely had this and some soy sauce mixed together as the dipping sauce for dumplings. It's also in a lot of recipes. I think it was $2 or $3 for a bottle. It adds a really unique flavor and it's kind of thick. You can see that's coming out. It's more like a paste than a soy sauce. We're going to add that in there. Everybody out of the pool. And then lastly, we're going to add in 2 tablespoons of plain white sugar. And all this stuff is going to start to come to a boil. You want to give it a good stir because the tomato paste and things, you want to make sure this gets good and mixed up. This is going to start to heat up here momentarily. There are as many recipes for General Tso's sauce as there are ways to spell and pronounce General Tso. I have tried General Tso chicken in many different restaurants in many different cities. There's some basic similarities, which is what I tried to capture in this recipe, are the things that are mostly the same. With any of these sauces, the first time you make it, try it. If there's something that you like or don't like, feel free. Say hi to Stacey. She's getting ready to go to work. Add and remove stuff to your taste. If you like it sweeter, add a little more sugar. If you think it's too sweet, leave the sugar out. As you can see, this is a nice brown from the soy and the hoisin. You get a little red from that. They got the peppers floating in there. Once you get this to where it is nice and hot and this is just starting to boil, then you're going to take, I have pre-mixed 2 tablespoons of cornstarch. See, I'm trying to do too many things at once. I need to use my thick spoon. 2 tablespoons of cornstarch, 2 tablespoons of cold water. If you pre-mix early enough, it will all start to stick together and get gluey. So make sure you give it a good stir if it's been sitting on the counter for a while, because this is going to thicken up our sauce. This is a great trick. Anything you want to thicken, gravy, sauce. I actually use the same basic amount of water and cornstarch when I am making fruit sauce, because it's flavorless, it's clear once it's cooked. It's really a great way if you want to thicken it up but not change the flavor. And unlike flour, cornstarch, when it's reheated, doesn't get lumpy. So we're going to stir this in here very quickly, and it'll look a little cloudy at first, but as you start to stir this in, you'll see very quickly this went from a thin liquid to a nice thick sauce. I'm going to give that a couple stirs. As soon as it starts to thicken like this, you can take it off the heat. If it's going to be a little while before you serve it, you can leave it like at a very low simmer and cover it. I'm just going to set this over here out of the way because we're trying to keep this to 20 minutes. And so there you go. General Tso sauce. Second sauce starts out very similar. I'm bringing another pan over here. I'm going to turn this up on high. You're going to put just a little bit. This is our teriyaki sauce. I'm going to put just a little bit of vegetable oil in here, about a tablespoon. We're going to start with our aromatics again. So this is, again, just a little bit of ginger and a little bit of garlic, about a tablespoon of each. You're going to put that in there. You want to wait for things to get nice and hot. I'm rushing things so we get through all this in 20 minutes. That pan should have been warmer than that. So pretend like I waited. This one, we'll go through while we're waiting for that pan to heat up. Get that one out of the way. Soy sauce, sugar. This one uses sesame oil. It's a nice to have. Comes in a little bottle that looks like this. You can usually get it where the soy sauce, and our grocery has what they call the Asian section, which is where you'll find your soy sauce, your hoisin sauce, the rice vinegar, sesame oil. This has a really low smoke point. You don't want to use this in a really strong flavor. Don't use that as your base oil for stir frying in. We're going to get to some better options for that in just a minute. But as a flavoring in a sauce like this, it adds a really nice sesame flavor, but you're using like a teaspoon, a few drops. Again, aromatics, a couple, 30 seconds to a minute max. As soon as you start to smell the garlic, it's time to start adding other things in. In this case, we're going to use water. So I have 1 cup of water that we're going to put in there. We're going to add 1/3 of a cup of packed, that's well packed brown sugar. I missed. You're going to put that in there. We're going to add 1/4 of a cup of soy sauce. Trust me, even though that's hard packed, as soon as that sugar hits that nice warm water, it's going to start to melt down. 1/4 of a cup of soy sauce. That should be more exciting. It's like watching soy sauce pour. Put that in there. I'm going to add a tablespoon of honey. You might be expecting fancy honey. Nope. Honey straight out of the honey bear. I'm going to put in a tablespoon of that. If I can get it to squeeze out of here at all. Should have warmed my honey up. You can warm honey up in the microwave. It will flow a lot better. It would have been more exciting for all of you if I had done that, but I didn't. I'm going to take that, and again, we're just going to scrape that out of there. Give this a little stir now that we got the sugar starting to dissolve. This is where we're also going to add just a teaspoon of the sesame oil. Again, a teaspoon is not much. So we're talking about like that. It's a really short pour if you don't have a teaspoon measuring handy. And then for this one, I also add, you can do this in the sauce, you can do this on top. I like to add it in the sauce. We're going to add about a teaspoon of sesame seeds, which is about 2 pinches. We're going to let this all come together to a boil. So for those who are paying attention, water, brown sugar, soy sauce, honey, garlic, ginger, sesame seeds, sesame oil. This is a much sweeter sauce, so if you like spicy, I recommend the General Tso's. If you like sweet, I recommend either the teriyaki, or there's also a recipe on the blog for the bourbon chicken recipe from the food court. That is a very sweet. Ooh, I can smell the sesame oil in this. It's a really nice kind of nutty flavor and smell. That's going to be boiling shortly, so I want to get my, once again, 2 tablespoons cornstarch, 2 tablespoons of water. And get that good and mixed up. Stacy Tenney is watching from the couch on Facebook Live. That's right, ladies and gentlemen. She is 3 feet away and she is watching the video. How's my quality? Do I look good this week?
Awesome.
I turned the Wi-Fi on. I learned last week. Whoa, and this is what happens if you're not paying attention. I'm stirring. If you start to bubble up too much, just take it off the heat. Alright, so we're going to add that in. Give it a stir. And again, with this, as soon as that cornstarch and water hits, trying to get this to where people can see it, this will start to thicken up very, very quickly. Leave it on the heat just long enough that the sort of milky color from the cornstarch becomes clear again, and you are good to go. If you leave this on super high heat with the cornstarch in there, it will start to turn into a jello-like solid. So once the cornstarch is in, low heat or no heat, and stir it just long enough until it's about the thickness that you want. And there you go. There's the second one. Alright. Take that out of there. So we got our 2 sauces. So let's talk a little bit about protein. Tofu. I want to hold that up there so everybody can see it. Get the extra firm tofu. It comes in all sorts of varieties. Anything short of extra firm is almost the consistency of yogurt. When you start working with it, it all just kind of dissolves and turns to mush. If you want to use it in a stir fry recipe, you want to get the extra firm. To get this wok, once we start stir frying with the wok, you want this really good and hot. So I'm going to put this all the way up and we're going to let this start heating up while I do this. So the secret to making tofu tolerable is to coat it with some stuff. I like to use a combination of flour and cornstarch and some secret herbs and spices. Put it all in a bag, toss it around, and when you stir fry it, you get sort of a nice crispy coating. It adds a little bit of flavor. Tofu itself doesn't really have much flavor at all. So to make this work, I'm putting a half cup of flour, a half cup of cornstarch into a bag. I'm going to give that a good shake to kind of mix things up. Get these out of the way. Then, if you have or can get Chinese 5-spice powder, I would use a tablespoon of Chinese 5-spice powder and about a teaspoon of ground cayenne red pepper. If you like spicy, if you don't, you can back that off a little to none at all. Because not everybody happens to have Chinese 5-spice powder sitting around, I did throw together a quick how to do this without it. That's General So, I need tofu. So in this bowl, you've got a teaspoon of black pepper, a teaspoon of red pepper, a teaspoon of cinnamon, and a teaspoon of nutmeg. That's going to get you a flavor that's very close to the Chinese 5-spice if you don't have that in your cupboard. So you can go at it either way. Once again, just give this a good mix, because all we're going to do is coat the tofu with this. So now that we've got this pan heating up, I'm going to add some oil. I don't like to heat the pan dry. We're going to put about 2 tablespoons. Again, you want to use something like a canola oil or mixed vegetable oil. You need something with a really high smoke point, because we're going to get this. Well, this is what happens when you do things live. Things break. So let's talk vegetables. We've talked proteins, we've talked sauces. Vegetables, because this is a high heat cooking technique, you want things that are either good, lightly cooked, So a vegetable that you would eat raw as is, so carrots, broccoli, not bad options for stir fry. You can also use really thin techniques to slice things. So for example, here are some common vegetables that you will find in stir fry. We're just going to move this thing out of the way because, oh, it's back. All right, common vegetables. While that's heating up, we're back in business. I'm going to put some oil in here so it can start heating. Carrots, peppers. You can use a bell pepper, the big ones. I like to use either red or orange just because it's colored. I don't find the flavor to be any different. Sometimes you can find these little sweet peppers. These have hardly any seeds in them. I literally take the top off, I just cut them into rings. Some things like zucchini. This is bok choy, which is a Asian vegetable. The base is kind of like celery. I would wash this well because like celery it tends to get dirty. Split it, chop it. You can even put the leaves in. Zucchini is one that you'll find a lot of places. For zucchini, I like to use my handy dandy little julienne board. You run this across here, you end up with these nice little thin strips so that it cooks quickly. I like my zucchini well cooked, so dice it small or thin strips. I do the same thing for carrots. You can julienne them. You can slice this thin or you can run them across the little julienne cutter like that. But today we're going to use some broccoli. We're going to use some mushrooms. These are shiitake mushrooms. You can use the regular Bella or white mushrooms that you can find in the grocery store. I just like the shiitake, and our grocery store carries them. And in pretty much every stir fry, I use red or white onions and some bell peppers. It adds some flavor, it adds some color. Alright, this thing is getting nice and warm. So, start with your thicker vegetables. This is where you can also cheat and reuse. We had broccoli last night for dinner steamed. Throw it in. All you have to do is grab your heat resistant stir fry tool. Start with your thicker, heavier vegetables that need to cook the longest first. So I would normally start with the broccoli, add your carrots. Again, you're stirring here. The goal is keep things moving, high heat, very short amount of time. You don't need to cook things for super extended periods of time. Our stovetop, like I said, this works so you can see it, but it doesn't work so well from getting this to the temperature you want. On a gas stove or a standard electric range, I would have this on high, and you want to be right at the edge of the point where your oil is starting to smoke, because you want this to be an in and out, make it happen quick. At this point, I will also add my peppers. Again, however much you like. I would add my mushrooms, however much you like. I would add some onions, however much you like. And keep this moving. You want to have all this stuff diced up ahead. You don't want to be stopping to dice while your stir fry is happening. You can use any vegetables you like. These are vegetables I like. Sometimes, if you can see over here behind me, you can buy the baby corn in a can. You can get water chestnuts, you can get bamboo shoots. Any and all of those are great additions to some stir fry. I think I lost my heat again. I'm going to throw in just a little zucchini. You want to keep this moving. Your vegetables are just going to start to be on the edge sort of kissed by the heat. But this is a very fresh, very light cooking technique. You're not trying to saute these things down. You don't want to cook it down and make it really brown. You just want them kissed by super high heat. And then our stovetop went on me again. At this point, when these were nice and crisp, again, takes maybe 3 minutes at high heat. This is where you can add your protein back in, whether it's chicken or tofu or jackfruit. Give everything a nice good stir here. And then at this point, you're about ready to come off the heat. By the time you're ready to add the sauce, you don't really need any more heat on it. You want to just have enough residual heat to keep things going. Let's do, like I said, I like spicy. So for a batch this size, this is enough for easily 3 to 4 people. I would use this whole batch. I'd add that in. I'm going to give things a good stir to just get everything coated. And like I said, if you don't have a wok, don't lose sleep over it. I've done this in a plain skillet many times when I either didn't want to be bothered with getting the wok out or the wok was dirty because I made stir fry the night before. You're going to get everything nice and coated. It's going to look something like that. For general so's, typically, even if it's just chicken, a lot of times with the chicken they don't add a lot of vegetables. It's just chicken. I always add a little something, either some onions or peppers. But if you order it in the restaurant, you're typically going to get just meat and sauce. But they will garnish it with, let me turn that off now. For general so's, they'll garnish it with a little bit of sesame seed. So again, that's a good flavor. So you can put a little of that on there. You'll also see it garnished with a little bit of green onion or scallion. And if you're serving family style, set it on the table just like that. It can be only vegetables, it can be only meat, it can be a combination of both. For the teriyaki sauce, since it already has sesame seeds in it, I would just add that, give it a good stir. Usually before I start any of this kind of stuff, I'll put a pot of rice in the rice cooker or on the stovetop, so that's all ready to go. And when this is done, rice takes about 15 minutes. This, when you're not using a pretend electric stovetop, takes 15 minutes. And in 20 minutes, you can have a really nice meal on the table, hot and fresh. You know, add some egg rolls if you want. We'll do that in another episode. Or some wontons. But it's a really nice, it's a great way to get vegetables snuck into the diet if you have folks that aren't big vegetable eaters. Stir fry is a great way to sneak it in with the sauce and the meat. You put that over rice, they don't notice that they're eating the vegetables. So with that, I'll say thanks for tuning in this week. Next week, there'll be another live broadcast and we will tackle something else, and maybe we'll figure out why the stovetop doesn't like to work between then and now. So